So one of the first things you need to do when you're doing your power steering rack is, of course, to flush the power steering system. You want to make sure you have clean fluid inside there, so when you put in your new rack, you know it's going to last a very long time. Once you've gone ahead and done that, you're going to get inside the vehicle and make sure you tie off the steering wheel so there's no way it can spin. I use a little bungee cord and it works great. And once you've done the flush, you're going to want to make sure that you have your key in the on position, and then you're going to come over here and disconnect your negative battery terminal. Get that off of there. Now you're going to leave that for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. That way there you don't disturb any of your airbag system with any of the service we're going to be completing now. Once your vehicle is raised and supported safely, you're going to remove all 6 lug nuts. Alright, so now that the wheel's off, we have a clear view of our jam nut. Go ahead and spray that down with some penetrant. Once you've let it sit for a little while, break the jam nut free. The next thing we're going to do is get this cotter pin out of here. This one's obviously very rotted. I'm just going to cut it. Okay, it's not coming out. I'm going to grab the socket and just kind of put it over the top of this. It's going to peen down on that cotter pin, and then we'll just take the nut off. Just going to start that nut on just a couple threads here, just so it can't fall. Spray down this area. Now we're going to hit right here on the knuckle and try to break the outer tie rod end from the knuckle. Okay, time to get the outer tie rod end off. Just go ahead and spin it. And while you spin it to the left, count those threads. 1, 2, and so on. Just take note of that number and write it down somewhere. Now we're just going to do the same on the other side of the vehicle. The next thing we want to do is remove the skid shields. Generally speaking, there should be one here and one a little bit further back. Obviously, our rearward one is missing already. Use a 12mm and get them out of the way. So now we're going to spray down the areas that we're going to take off. If you look up inside here, you're going to see where the lines are. Hit those with a little bit of penetrant. We're going to keep moving along. You're going to see this bracket that holds these lines, but follow it a little bit further to the area where it leads onto the rack, and go ahead and spray that down as well. If you were to continue on, you're going to feel right here, this is a mounting bolt that comes through from the bottom. It has a nut on top. Go ahead and give that a spray, and then right over here, same thing. I'm going to grab some long nose pliers, get right in here, try to grab that clamp. Slide this right up here. Awesome. See if you can wiggle that around. It should want to pry up. Just going to grab onto it carefully with my pliers and see if I can lift it a little bit. And then I'm going to keep drawing up by hand. You want to be careful not to damage this hose in any way. A little bit of fluid's going to come out, so make sure you have your collection bucket. Come on. There it is. Use your 17mm and go ahead and get this line off of here. Nice. Sometimes the hardest part's just breaking it free. Looks like it's getting pretty loose here. There it is. Awesome. The next thing we need to do is get this bracket off of here, so use your 12mm and take out the bolt. Nice. So now we're going to go ahead and get off that lower bolt for the steering shaft that leads down to the rack. Put a 12mm on there, break it free, and just pay attention to make sure that the rack shaft doesn't turn. If it turns a little bit, that's okay, but we want it to be as straight as possible. There's our bolt. I'm going to use a pry bar, but you could also use a chisel. Come right up in between these two ears where the bolt was, and just try to wedge it in there. That's going to spread the ears. We're going to hit it with some more penetrant, and we'll get this shaft right off of here. Now I'm going to take out the two bolts that are holding this in. I have a 17mm nut up top, and then right underneath I'll find a 17mm bolt head. We'll get both of these out of here. We're going to take off the bracket that's holding these lines. That way there we can move these around. Just use your 10mm, take off the bolt. Let's just grab that bracket. We'll get it right out of the way. There I can grab this. If you have to wiggle the power steering rack around, it might be helpful. The world's longest bolt. So now that the rack's out, we know we have that lower bolt out. Let's just go ahead and get the shaft off of here. Pulling the rack a little bit. Awesome. Let's use our 12mm and get this bracket off as well. Cover your hose ends with something, and then just kind of set them so they're going to be out of your way here. The next thing we're going to do is get the jam nut off of here. Find your clamp, take that off with some long nose pliers. We're going to remove the inner clamp. Just take a look and see how it's mounted on here. Mine's just a little squeeze clamp. It's a single time use, so I'm going to break it off, and then I'll have to replace it with another clamp or a wire tie. Go ahead and grab onto that boot and remove it. Now I'm just going to clean off this area on the inner tie rod end, right up along here. At this point, there's multiple ways of doing it. You can use a tool that looks like this. They also sell a tool that's a big long pipe. You slide it over with an adapter. I like to go with just big old pliers. You can grab onto it, break it free, turn it right off of there. If you have a hard time reaching to this because it's too far in, just grab your inner and tug it out. That'll bring it out to where you need it. There it is. Let's do the same to the other side. Now we're going to remove these brackets that you can see up front. We're going to use 17mm on all four, and then we'll do the same to this one as well. Do the same to the other one. So now just be careful with those lines. You want to make sure that once we get this sway bar down, they're not going to come falling down and get fluid all over you or potentially in your eyes. So just kind of figure out a place that you can put them that'll make it so they won't leak. The next thing we're going to do is remove the sway bar from the front area here. You'll notice that the front of these brackets is slotted, so you can loosen up the front bolt quite a bit and then remove the rear bolt completely. I'll leave this one in a few good threads. Remove that rearward one. Do the same on the other side. Hold your bar. This is great. Now we have a nice clear view. I'm just going to take one of those mounting bolts, put it back through the rack a little bit, just like this. Once you have it so the rack can't move around too much on you, we're going to remove the little tip that's on the rack there that the hose goes onto. Use your 17mm and break this free. Make sure you clean this up. We're going to be reusing it. Let's just get this bolt back out of here now. Awesome. Now we're just going to use a jack and support this nice and lightly. Then you're going to remove these two bolts right here. Use your 19mm wrench up top and your 22mm socket down here. Do the same to the other side. Now we have a nice clear area here. Let's try to get the rack out. There it is, friends. So now it's going to be time to center the power steering rack. And when I say centering the power steering rack, I don't necessarily mean measuring from this end to right here and then this end to right here. It's not about that at all. It's about measuring the internals of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab onto this. I'm going to turn it all the way to one end. That's going to be my starting point. At that point, I'll turn it all the way to the other side, and then I'll count those threads. As I went, I'm going to divide that by 2, and then I'll turn it back to the left to get to that divisible point, and then we'll know where to go from there. The next thing I'm going to do is loosen these up a little bit. Use your locking pliers, go up on the smooth area. Go all the way to one side. Nice and slow. It's not a race. Okay, so what we need to do is just make sure we're at the very end, which we are. Now I'm going to line these pliers up with my 6 o'clock position, and I'm going to count all the way till it gets to the other side. 1, 2, 3, 3.5. Perfect. Divide that in half, and then that'll be where the rack's going to be centered internally. So I'm going to turn this back 1 3/4. 1, half, 3/4. Now we're at approximately the centered position. So now I'm just going to clean this off, make sure that there's no oil on this area, and I'm going to mark the rack so I know approximately where this needs to be. And that's going to help us for when we put this in the vehicle because we're going to have to kind of spin this rack a little bit. Let's go ahead and push this power steering rack all the way to the right. Slide this up in here. Turn that inner. Just try to walk it over. The differential is going to be what's hanging you up mostly. Awesome. So go ahead and grab one of these rack bolts. We're going to start it through the passenger side. Start on that nut, but you don't have to tighten it up because we're not getting to that point yet. We just kind of want to hold the rack so it can't move in this direction. So at this point, we're just going to push the rack all the way to the passenger side as far as it'll go. I can see where my line is. I'm just going to pay attention because now I'm going to go ahead and turn this the 1 3/4 turns, heading back towards the driver's side. Once we do our 1 3/4 turns back in the other direction, our two lines should line up perfectly. So now we're just going to pull on the left front inner tie rod and watch that shaft spin around. We want it to turn 1 3/4 turns. That's pretty close. I'm going to go back and try to line this up. Say that that's pretty much it right there. So now we're just going to take a look at this. You can see the areas that we need to clean, which is the threaded area. We're also going to get this little rubber seal off of here. Once you have it off, you can inspect it. Generally speaking, it's a great idea to replace it though. Once you have it all nice and cleaned up, go ahead and put on your brand new O-ring, and then you're going to coat that with a little bit of that power steering fluid. Let's go ahead and get off that far rearward cap, the one closest to the steering shaft. Install this back in there. Go ahead and snug it up now. Okay, it's bottomed out. Teeny bit more. Great. So now it's going to be time to get the steering shaft onto the rack. Before you go ahead and put it on though, make sure that that steering wheel is still nice and straight. So we can move the rack around still. We're just going to go ahead and put the steering shaft right up on it and then slide the two together. Make sure that your lines are still lined up on the rack where you centered it. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and start in this lower bolt here. I like to use a tiny bit of thread locker on my pinch bolt. We'll call it your prerogative. Go ahead and put it through there. We're just going to snug it up and then we'll torque it to manufacturer specifications. Okay, so it's snug. That feels good. So now we're just going to make sure that the steering wheel is nice and straight, and we're going to double check those lines to make sure we're lined up the way we should be. Now it's time to get the rack mounting bolts in, so we're just going to turn this back around to the right direction. There it is. Start that nut on there. Do the same to the other side. Let's go ahead and bottom these out. Torque these to 68 foot-pounds. Now we're just going to try to turn this so we can get to that bolt. 26 foot-pounds. There it is. Let's make sure we re-secure this line that was over that steering rack bolt. Grab the bracket, put it back up over, and then start in your bolt. Go ahead and snug it up. Go ahead and grab those lines. Now you want to clean this down the same way you clean down that other line. Get your little gasket off of there, clean down these threads, replace the gasket, and then add a little bit of lubricant. Let's go ahead and get the cap off of there. Save that for the other rack. Grab your lines, put them up in here. Okay. The one that screws into the rack directly is the pressure line, and the one that has the little clamp that holds it to that extra piece is the return line. Make sure that's nice and tight. That looks great. I'm going to grab my hose, slide it right down as far as it can go. Now we're going to make sure we put the clamp on and make sure it's just below that barb. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and get this bracket bolt back in here. Make sure you snug it up so the lines are nice and secure. Let's get these bolts back through. Bottomed out. A little more. Bottomed out. A little more. So now go ahead and grab your bolts that are going to hold the sway bar bracket to the frame. If you wanted to add a little bit of copper never seize, now's the time. So now you want to just push your inner tie rod so it's up against the shock here. Do the same on the other side. And then go ahead and grab your bar, slide it, and then get the inner tie rod so it's underneath the bar. Let's get the bracket up and over that bolt. Do the same on the other side, of course, at the same time. Start in those rearward bolts. Let's go ahead and snug these up. Start with the rearward bolt. Go ahead and torque all these bolts to 30 foot-pounds. So now what we're going to do is get these up on here. We've got our 4 bolts for the driver's side, and then of course we're going to put in the bolts for the other side. All right, let's snug them up. Let's go ahead and clean down our work area. You want to make sure it's good and clean with no leftover fluid. Let's put our shield up on here. You have your mounting areas on these plates. If you want to hit them with some copper never sees, it's not a bad idea. Let's snug them up. Let's get this back in here. Let's go ahead and spray down the inner tie rod end area with some copper never sees. All right, now let's go ahead and put on our outer tie rod end. Make sure that you count back to the original number when you took it off. Go ahead and bring that jam nut down to the outer tie rod end. We're not going to snug it up yet because we need to start it into the knuckle. So now we're going to take our castle nut, we're going to start it on the outer tie rod end. After that, we're going to bottom it out and then we'll torque it to manufacturer's specifications. Let's go ahead and bottom this out. Now torque it to 67 foot-pounds. Once you have your castle nut torqued down to the manufacturer's specifications, you want to pay attention to where the cotter pin is going to go through the stud on the tie rod and line it up with the closest slot on the slotted nut. When you do that, you need to continue tightening. If it doesn't line up, tighten it just a little bit more until it does. Do not loosen it. Let's go ahead and make sure you get that cotter pin in there. Super important. Now let's tighten up the jam nut. That's nice and snug. Perfect. Do the same on the other side of the vehicle. Okay, we're cruising. Let's get the wheel back up on here. And of course, get all your lug nuts on and started. Let's go ahead and bottom out all the lug nuts. Okay, now we're going to do the same to the other side, and then we're going to torque them to manufacturer's specifications. All right, let's go ahead and torque the wheel in a crisscross pattern to 83 foot-pounds. Torqued. Let's go ahead and reconnect that negative battery terminal. Make sure you tighten it up. It needs to be super tight. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and grab that. All right, let's top it off. Okay, so now that we have that topped off, we're just going to go inside the vehicle and we're going to turn the wheel very slowly to stop position all the way to the left, and then turn it very slowly all the way to the right, and do that several times. So now we're just going to start up the vehicle for only a couple seconds and watch for air bubbles. That's good. Now let's check for air bubbles and check our level. I'm going to wait for all those little air bubbles to go away, and then I'm going to restart it again. Just clean down that area, make sure it's nice and clean. We should be able to check our level. All right, let's close the hood, and then we'll take it for a good road test.